Sweatshop or sweat factory is any working environment considered to be unacceptably difficult or dangerous. Sweatshop workers often work long hours for very low pay, regardless of the laws mandating overtime pay or a minimum wage. The International Labour Organization has estimated that 250 million children between the ages of 5 and 14 work in developing countries. 61% in Asia, 32% in Africa, and 7% in Latin America, and many of them working for American factories or American clothing lines that have just factories in other countries. So many of these sweatshop factories are actually due to the people of the US. It's our fault. Many of these children are forced to work. They are denied an education in a normal childhood. Some are confined and beaten. Some are even denied the right to leave the workplace and go home to visit their families. And many are abducted and forced to work. Here's an example of a 9-year-old girl who toils under the hot sun, making bricks from morning to light, 7 days a week. She was trafficked with her entire family from Bihar, one of the poorest and most underdeveloped states in India, and sold to the owner of a brick-making factory. With no means of escape and unable to speak the local language, the family is isolated and lives in terrible conditions. In sweatshops, there's many things that are made. For example, shoes. There are many types of shoes made in sweatshops. However, the biggest problem is found with sneakers and athletic shoes. Most athletic shoes are made in sweatshops in Asian countries. Child labor is also very common in the shoe industry. Clothing is also very often made in sweatshops with the use of child labor. In the U.S., the majority of garment workers are immigrant women that work 60 to 80 hours a week, usually with a minimum wage or overpay. Overseas garment workers routinely make less than a living wage, working under extremely oppressive conditions. In sweatshops, chocolate, bananas, and coffee are also made. Banana workers are often some of the most exploited workers in the world. 43% of cocoa beans come from the Ivory Coast, where recent investigators have found child slavery. Coffee is the second largest U.S. import after oil. Many small coffee farmers receive prices for their coffee that are less than the cost of production, forcing them into a cycle of poverty and debt. Workers need to be paid a living wage, enough to meet their basic needs and to afford and enable them to plan a better future. Unfortunately, sweatshops and factories have made this very difficult for many people around the world. As you can see in this chart, there are many countries that have sweatshop factories, such as Colombia, Ecuador, El Salvador. Many of these countries are actually only female workers are working there, as you can see in the gray, and the blue it's a very small percentage, but there's men working there. And all of these people that are working at the factories are actually working for American productions. There are many factories and sweatshops located outside the U.S. Nike is one of the biggest shoe production companies in the world, and many sweatshops are derived from this current place. Here's a short clip showing the effects of sweatshops, especially by the Nike company.